Are you walking through a time of unimaginable pain that seems as if it'll never end? Or have you experienced a deep personal loss of some kind? Or do you find yourself unable to breathe at times and having to literally force yourself to put one foot in front of the other just to keep going each day? Or maybe you feel trapped. Maybe you feel like as if you're under a suffocating weight that is silently keeping your mind and your heart captive and locked up in pain and isolation, and you can't figure out how to escape it. If you can relate to any of these in any way, then this podcast is for you. But what if you're thinking the things you said don't apply to me? All I know is I feel broken and stuck in life no matter what I try or what I do. Well, I think this podcast will be a good place for you too, because you see, although the past and the events in life that lead to pain, suffering, and a sense of feeling stuck or lost are just unable to move from where you are to where you want to go, although the paths that lead us there are different, the outcome is the same: brokenness and pain. And so, this podcast and this time together, it's meant to be a safe space for you to just come and be. We tackle this overwhelming and common aspect of life for most people because you see, you think you're alone, but you're not. The vast majority of people are dealing with pain and loss and feeling stuck and brokenness and not sure what to do. So, with that said, I want to welcome you to the introduction to the Authentically Broken Your Pain Has Purpose podcast. Now, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Vicki O'Brien, and I literally am just a simple Southern girl. Okay, some of my friends would say sassy too. And I genuinely believe that connection with others, connecting with other people, that it's literally at the heart of this life. And that's a big reason why I started this podcast. As you saw in the show's description, this podcast is absolutely not about me wanting a platform for influence because I don't. I've avoided social media pretty much since it's been out for a reason. I don't desire influence. I'm not seeking it out. And I'm also not looking for followers. That's not the purpose of this podcast. I'm hoping to find a family and like-minded people, but I'm not seeking followers. And that's because, in all honesty, I would really rather not talk about the personal matters of my heart and the personal matters of my life with strangers. I just wouldn't. That has always been who I am. I always have, and I still do enjoy privacy in these areas. And part of that has to do with what I've done for a living, as well as just some aspects of my family. I think we all have aspects of our life that we don't necessarily want to share, or we wouldn't necessarily show to others. And that's true for me too. But I also value protection for the most cherished and treasured things in my life, which is typically people and relationships. That's why I've always been this way and I've protected it. And for the most part, I don't choose to speak about it publicly. But there's a flip side to that coin, and it's this: I am also a born again believer in Jesus Christ. And here's the thing: when you choose to believe in Jesus, it not only places you in a covenant personal relationship with the Lord, and we're going to break that down in this podcast, kind of what that is and what does that mean, but it also makes you a member of the larger body of Jesus Christ. It makes you a member of the body. And so I can't function properly without rightly connecting with others because of that. Now, notice I said rightly connecting. That's the key. Now, for some of you listening, what I'm saying, it sounds or it seems maybe confusing to you. And especially that is true if you're familiar with me from my professional world, from the world of entertainment, and the more than 28 years now that I've been a TV and film actress. Or maybe you're familiar with me from the various public stages that I've spoken on, whether it's been in the corporate world or whether it's been in some high profile speaking engagements where I was talking about important and a lot of times controversial topics. It may be hard for you to believe that. Why do you find this hard? Why would this be hard to do a podcast and talk to people or talk to strangers? You do it all the time. I find it easy for people to assume that I love attention on myself because of my career in this and that I thrive off confronting controversial topics. However, nothing could be farther from the truth. It really couldn't. As a matter of fact, at least this is true for me. The reasons why acting in front of a camera, which by the way, that's not just a camera, it's a room filled with people looking at you. But believe it or not, The reason why that feels and comes more natural to me, I think it's actually pretty simple. And that's because it is not my life and not things or information about me that's being portrayed or scrutinized. It's a character. The individual Vicky is not being scrutinized. It's not me as a person, it's a character. And so you see, my personality, believe it or not, in real life, I'm very direct and honest. And it's because I value authenticity. I do. Part of that has to be with where I'm from, being from Texas and in the South, where we just don't have time for tomfoolery and not being direct. That's literally kind of a way of life and an attitude that I think is ingrained in us from birth. I don't know. Or maybe I just have a particular hitch in my giddy up. I don't know. But I know that is part of it. But it's also just because, like I said, I value authenticity and I just value the real thing, not just in other people, but in all aspects of life. I just don't want to waste my time with something that isn't real. And that for me means relationships as well. So even though that's my personality, I'm very direct and honest because of that. At the same time, my heart has always been very tender, very sensitive, and drawn towards the hurt and pain in others. I'm actually drawn towards that because that makes me want to spend time with you. I want to know why. And I want to kind of sit in that with you and walk alongside you in that. It's just part of my personality. And I've always been motivated by that and moved that way. And I think it's because, I mean, some of it does have to do with what I experienced growing up, what I had and what I didn't have, and what I had to encounter early on. So I can be empathetic. And I really long to see restoration in other people's lives because I've experienced it. So I know it can happen. And when you're walking through that, when I was young, I wanted that myself. So I can relate to that. But even with all that said, turning on a camera like this and having a discussion about real life, friends, it's hard for me. And it's because it requires complete authenticity and vulnerability in order for this to work. And for those of you who know my story, especially the last 3 or 4 years, it's hard. And it's not something I want to do because the feelings resurface. And as you get to know me, you're going to see this. There's going to be laughter, there's going to be tears, there's going to be good times, there's going to be hard times, but I'm just going to be real. And more often than not these days, the tears start to flow as I start to talk about things that I don't have to talk about all the time. And when I just get to be real, and that's what I want to do. And I'm not going to try to stop it. I'm not going to try to fake it because that's not authentic. And I have a feeling you're tired of that and you don't want that either. And here's why. Here's why I believe it's important. Authenticity is. Because you see, authenticity and vulnerability are the only way true connection with another person can ever take place. And true connection matters because intimate connection needs to happen in order to have any type of meaningful relationship in this life. I'm going to say that again. True connection matters because it's absolutely necessary to have any type of meaningful relationship in life. You can have all types of relationships, but not that many are meaningful. And the ones that are meaningful, they are meaningful because there's a connection on an intimate level. And that requires authenticity and it requires vulnerability. So why am I telling you all this? You may be thinking, that's great. Why are you saying all this? Thank you, Dr. Phil, which I'm not Dr. Phil, and this is not going to be a Dr. Phil hour. I have a lot more hair. Anyways, I digress. I'm saying this because I wholeheartedly believe we were created for relationship. Relationship with our creator, first and foremost, and in turn, a relationship with others. And when I was writing this, as I was writing this, it made me stop and think about something. And I thought, actually, when you do stop and think about it, almost all of the situations and circumstances in life for each of us that lead to pain, suffering, heartache, loneliness, depression, feeling stuck, feeling alone, or just a chaotic heart overall, Almost all of those are a result of a broken relationship of some sort. Stay with me. Let me tell you what I'm talking about. Let me give you some examples. It could be a broken relationship with another person. Yes, that's what we typically tend to think of when we're talking about relationships. But as humans, we relate and have a relationship with more than just people. So it could be a broken relationship of some sort for some people with an animal, or a relationship with a job, or a relationship with an organization, because yes, you do have a relationship to job and you do have relationships to organizations you're involved in. Or it could even be, and a lot of times it is, your relationship with yourself. Or maybe it's your relationship to this world in which you live. Or more often than not, it's a combination of some of these or all of these. Here's the point. The fact that relationships are foundational to this life is a universal truth, right? Relationships are foundational to this life, and it's a universal truth that connects us all. So what we're going to talk about from week to week, I'm laying the foundation for why we're going to talk about what it is that we're going to talk about, why I'm going to take the direction I'm going to take, why I'm setting it up the way I am, and why you'll see the things you'll see. It's because I want our time together in this podcast to be focused on having an honest discussion about gritty and hard topics in life that most people avoid. You'll find podcasts that talk about things and they say they're hard hitting and they're going after the gritty and the hard things, but yet they just barely go under the surface. They barely break the epidermis layer. They don't really go deep, because in order for that to happen, the podcaster would have to be willing to go deep with you because they direct it. And most people aren't willing to do that. I'm not going to ask you to do anything I'm not willing to do myself. And I don't want to shy away from the hard and the gritty things in life like most people do. So why do most people avoid that and avoid those topics? And why is it hard to find a place where you can really come and tackle these kind of things and the hard things in life in an honest way, but in a way that's uplifting too, but just come at it honestly? Why is that avoided so often? Well, let's start with, why am I doing this? And I can tell you right now, it's not for clicks, because I'll probably have more people go delete, done with her, than I will have people wanting to join. So I'm not doing this for clicks or attention. And I'm not even doing it to stir up curiosity. That would be crazy. I mean, I don't think I'm crazy. And some people may say that, but not crazy like that. That's not why I'm doing it. There are two main reasons I want to take this path with you. And the first one is, it's because the gritty and the hard things in life are guaranteed to come our way, whether we want them or not, and whether we like them or not. I can guarantee you the hard and gritty things that you're not going to want to remember, much less talk about, are guaranteed to come your way and my way. And we're not going to like them, and we're not going to desire it. That's a guarantee in this life. So avoidance is not a healthy or a successful game plan. They're coming, so to avoid them, not only is that not healthy, but that's not successful, because you can't. And because facing and dealing with our reality in an honest way, it hurts. I know that, and you know that to be true. Because of this, most of us, including myself, will choose anything else if we're given the choice. We will avoid pain and avoid having to deal with it if we're given the choice. I'm the same way. So I want you to think of me in this podcast as the friend who loves you, who will do what you need, even if you don't like it, as a friend who's going to just give you that tap off the high dive. Picture yourself standing on the high dive and you're on the end of it and you're trying to talk yourself up into jumping off. And you're like, I need to do this. I need to experience it. It's going to give me something new. I can do this, but you are just stuck and you can't. And you have that good friend, we all have them, who's like, hey, you got this, you can do it. And they just come up behind you and push you off as you're saying, no, I need more time. I want you to think of me as that friend who's going to push you off that high dive, because I love you and because you need it. But guess what? As I'm pushing you off, I'm jumping with you. We're going to do it together. Here's why. Because how we deal with the unthinkable and hard things in life determines who and what we become. I want to say that again, because the unthinkable and the hard things are inevitable. How we deal with them determines who and what we become. And the other reason that I'm centering this podcast around the hard, gritty things, and I'm being willing to be vulnerable and talk about this stuff, is because, well, in case anyone watching this somehow hasn't noticed, or maybe you've been living in a cave or under a rock the past 10 plus years. I don't know. I guess it's possible. The state of our society and our world as a whole, I just picture it as this giant compounding snowball that is picking up steam as it's going downhill, and it is just wrecking lives and everything in its track as it keeps going. It's just leaving a wake of broken people as it keeps picking up steam, going downhill faster. So the reality is we live in a world that's bringing it our way, and it's inevitable. So then I don't understand why we aren't dealing with it, right? Because the reality is that when the world you live in, that you must live in and you must function in, when it's broken at its core, and this world is, it will inevitably, in turn, create brokenness by wreaking havoc and destruction, anything that's subject to it. And we are subject to the world we live in. It's broken, therefore it's going to create broken people. Now, do not get me wrong. This is not a podcast about doom and gloom. I am not saying there's nothing good about the world, so don't anybody go out there, and I don't want to see the nasty gram people saying, don't want to listen to her, she's Miss Doom and Gloom. No, I am not. And anyone who knows me knows that's not true. And you're going to hear the good news over and over and over in this, and that's what this podcast is going to be about. However, with that said, here is what I am saying. The reality is the world is broken. Yes, there are great things in it, and there are good things in it, and I want you to experience that. And I don't want you to focus on the broken things. But you can't ignore and not acknowledge that this world is broken and it creates broken people. There's a difference. I'm not saying focus on it, but you have to acknowledge it and deal with it. There are two different things, and both can coexist, and they should. And that's what we're going to do in this podcast. So I want you to think of it like this. A broken world guarantees broken people. But it doesn't mean you have to stay that way. Not the way it wants you to be broken. So then the question becomes how to navigate all of this, because it becomes a necessary and fundamental principle for all of us if we want to experience a truly full and blessed life. If it's going to come, no matter what we do, then we need to learn to understand how do we navigate it so that we can get to that blessed life and that full life. So once again, please hear me. This is not a message of doom and gloom. That's not what this podcast is. We're going to deal in reality. But in that reality, I want it to be a rally call to get us to actually be honest and deal so that we can choose the path of peace in life. Because you can't get on the path to peace in life if you don't first understand that you need to get on the path to peace in life because you're broken. Make sense? So what does it mean to be authentically broken? And why is that the name that I chose for this podcast, other than it describes me? And I'm pretty sure it describes more than just me. A lot more people than just me. Well, like we just discussed, brokenness is a prerequisite for being a human in a fallen, broken world. So if that's the case, the only real choice we have is how we respond to the things in life, including brokenness, and what we allow it to do in us. It's how we respond to it and what we allow it. Did you notice that word? That allowing something means you have control over it and you get to choose. And we'll go into that eventually in one of our weekly sessions together. I believe there are two types of brokenness that humans have to deal with. So let's break this down a little bit so we understand, what does this mean to be broken? And is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Is it both? Well, let's talk about that. I believe there's two types of brokenness. Being broken, two types of brokenness. I think that's grammatically correct. Oh my goodness, grammar matters. So I'm sure somebody will tell me one way or the other. But I believe there's two types of brokenness that humans experience in this life. And one is for our demise, our destruction, and our death. But the other brokenness is for our healing, our restoration, and our peace. I want to say that again, because this really isn't talked about or explained. So let me say it again, because it's probably the first time you're hearing it. There's two types of brokenness that we deal with and that people experience in this life. The first one is meant for your demise, your destruction, and your death. But the other brokenness is meant for our healing, our restoration, and for peace. So brokenness is not only inevitable, but it's also necessary. if you want peace. That sounds contradictory, but friends, it isn't. Because being broken in and of itself, if what I just laid out is true, so just go with me here on this. If what I just laid out is true, then brokenness is necessary. And that also means being broken in and of itself is not always a bad thing. It's why and how we are broken in our response to that brokenness that determines the impact it has on us. And the impact it has on us as well determines whether it's a bad or a good thing. Now, you may be sitting there thinking, okay, that kind of makes sense, but hold on. I don't know. How in the world could being broken ever be a good thing for a human being? Stay with me on this. Despite maybe some of my flubs and questioning if a word was a word here, I actually do love the English language. I was an English minor in college. So, anyways, I'm getting ready to break that down for you. How in the world could it ever be a good thing for a human being? Well, you see, that question is only a question, and we only ask it based on the definition of the word broken you're using. You see, like many words in the English language, this word, which is actually an adjective, broken, it has multiple meanings. And depending on the meaning you use, it's going to determine the connotation of the word. Let me show you what I mean, okay? Let me give you an example of this and show you what I'm talking about. Let me give you the different definitions of the word broken. So the first definitions I'm going to give you, and there are multiple ones, have to do with one connotation. And I'll let you see as I go, if maybe before I tell you, you can determine if it's the good definition, what's good for us, or one that's looking to destroy us, the one that's going to bring us peace or the one that wants to bring us death. So here's the multiple definitions of the first one. Violently shattered into parts, made weak or infirm, subdued completely, or bankrupt. Now, you might be catching this, and I think a lot of it depends on your belief system and things you've been taught. But that definition is actually the one that is for your good, that leads to peace. And I can just hear it now. I heard the skirt. I heard the skip in the record with some of you. You're like, what? That's actually for your good. And if you are a believer in Jesus, you should have scripture going through your mind right now that tells you, yes, that is true. To be bankrupt means to be devoid of self, to be made weak or infirm. Oh my goodness, how much does Paul talk about that? That's a good kind of brokenness because it leads to new life and peace. Now listen to the other definition. Damaged or altered, meaning it's not working properly, irregular or full of obstacles, violated by transgression. That's what damaged or altered means. Another part of the definition for this, not complete or full, meaning you're left partial in your state, or separation or desertion. And in that definition of broken, it's typically referring to separation or desertion in reference to parents or a spouse. None of those definitions are good or for your good. That's the type of brokenness that's for your demise and your destruction and your death. So depending on the definition you're using for the word determines whether it's something for your good or something for your destruction, friend. We have to understand, we tend to think that everything in life is either an either or. And there are things that are either or that can't be both. There absolutely are. But there are a lot of things that are both and. There just are. This is one of those. And for anyone who claims Jesus Christ as their Lord and Savior, or maybe you're open to having a relationship with God, either way, understanding what it means to be authentically broken, that's key, friends, because the Bible tells us that is what that is what God requires from us. You may be thinking, why? King David put this so eloquently in Psalm 51 and what he describes. And he's talking to God and he's talking about himself and his state and his struggles. And he's talking to God about who he knows God to be and what God wants from him and what God needs from him versus where he's at, but where he wants to go and what it takes to get there. I encourage you to read the entire Psalm, but we're going to focus in on verses 16 through 17 because they're at the heart of what I'm talking about right now. And they're foundational to the point of view that we're going to take in this podcast. And it's this, because here's what Psalm 51 verses 16 through 17 says, and it gets at the heart of it. Like I said, David is talking to God in this, and he says, "For you do not desire sacrifice, or else I would give it." So he's telling God, you don't want sacrifice from me. You don't want me to give things, or I'm saying, here I'm going, I'm sacrificing that. That's not what you want from me. He says, or else I'd give it. Then he says, you do not delight in burnt offering. Were they commanded to do offerings? Yes, they were. But he's saying, you don't delight in that. He says, the sacrifices of God, the things that are pleasing to him, that we give to him sacrificially, the sacrifices of God are a broken spirit, a broken and a contrite heart. These, O God, you will not despise. Did you hear that? He is using that first definition of broken that I gave you. And he's saying, this is what you want. And these you won't turn away from. These you won't despise. These you will bless and you will honor. So you see, we tend to think of anything being broken as being a bad thing. But friends, that's not necessarily the case. Even though a lot of the times it is, it's not always the case. So each week in this podcast, we're going to peel back the layer of the onion, so to speak. You'll hear me say that a lot, because we've got to keep going deep and we've got to ask the why behind the why and keep looking. So we're going to peel back the layer of the onion on this. What does it mean to be authentically broken? Because this is a reality that so many of us, we're broken, but we're broken due to pain, suffering, and loss. So we're going to keep looking at it in order to find the path towards peace and restoration that many of us desperately want to find. And I think that's true about many people, whether you have vocalized it to anyone else or not. You know it's true in your heart and your mind. And as I say that, that's resonating with you. Because that peace that you want, but you think is elusive and you can't find, it absolutely exists. And it's available to each of us. It's available to you. Do you hear me? That peace is available to you. And I know from firsthand experience. But here's the thing. We must learn how to navigate the road that leads us there. And the problem I find is that the road that gets you there, very few, if any, people are leading you down the right road. There are so many other roads and distractions that won't lead you there. And they look like the real thing, but they're knockoffs and they don't get you there. And they leave you in the same broken state you were in, and sometimes even worse than you were before you got on it, because they promised you a hope that wasn't there. Aren't you tired of going in circles? Aren't you tired of taking roads that are dead ends? Let's deal with it honestly and deal with some things maybe we don't want to, or that we avoid it so we could take a shortcut. Because friends, I can promise you this, there's no shortcuts to peace. Because there's no shortcuts to sanctification. Does it suck? Yeah. As a human being, I'm going to tell you it sucks. But is it worth it? I believe so. And that's what I think you have to ask yourself. So why not see? Why not see if it is? You don't know if you don't try. So here's the thing. It's okay if you don't agree with everything I say. As a matter of fact, I actually respect that. And I expect it. If you're agreeing with everything I say, question your sanity for one thing. But no, seriously. That means you're not thinking for yourself. And you're not thinking critically. And we need more critical thinkers. Don't turn your brain off. By the way, believing in God does not equate to shutting your brain off. That equates to being moronic. I'm not trying to be mean, but that's just true. That equates to stupidity, not believing in God. God created your brain. He created you to be logical. So the two go together. Okay, I'm not asking you to do that, and I don't want you to do that. And to just listen to everything I say and agree with everything I said would mean you're shutting your brain off. Now, you may agree with a lot of the things I say. That's okay. But you also may disagree with me. That's okay. I expect that. Now, you also may dislike or question certain things that are said or discussed on this podcast. That too is okay. I'm not concerned about that. That's not going to hurt my feelings. I'm not going to tell you to go away. I'm not asking for you to agree with everything. That is not a rational expectation, or is it healthy? So I'm not expecting that. Here's all that I do ask. I ask that you come with an open mind and an open heart that's seeking the truth. And I just ask that you be willing to take an honest look at yourself and others through this process. then we can actually become a family because we don't always agree with our families, do we? Matter of fact, a lot of times we don't always like our other family members. But I am so convinced, friends, we have to figure out how to live with one another and agree to disagree, but how to have honest conversations where we are on opposite sides of the fence. And it's a debate, but not in a way that is trying to harm or destroy the other person, but because you are honestly trying to see, do I really believe this? Or do I have room to learn something else? Or am I holding on to something I shouldn't? And we can't do that if we're not willing to discuss it. And I also personally believe that a belief that is worth living for and dying for and clinging to with all your life, if it's worth doing that, it will hold up to scrutiny, friends. If you're not willing to have your beliefs scrutinized or you run whenever they're challenged, maybe you need to ask yourself, is that a belief that will hold up to the fire? It's just food for thought, something to think about. So, in order to do all this, and here's why I want us to do it. Here's what I desire from this in this time. I desire to find a family of people who are searching for truth. Like I said, I'm not looking for followers and I'm not looking for a platform for influence. I'm not looking for that. I don't desire that. Not what I'm seeking. Who comes will come. What happens will happen, period. What I do desire is to find a family of people who are searching for truth and they are willing to allow their hearts and minds to be upended if that's what it takes in order to find it. Because I can tell you that had to happen in my life. So I know it's real. And that means that all of us, including myself, actually starting with me, we're going to have to be moldable and teachable along the way. It doesn't happen and it doesn't work any other way. So each week, we're going to discuss something from the many struggles and lessons I have learned over my life, but especially over the last 3 to 4 years. For those of you who don't know, over the last 3 years, in a short span of 14 months, I experienced the unexpected deaths of my husband, brother, and mother in that order, which were really all of my remaining family. And so you're going to get to know more about this time. I'm going to talk about it and how I'm able to stand and not just survive, but thrive, like genuinely thrive and have genuine peace. When in all reality, in this world and what most people would think or say, that should have destroyed me. And from this world's perspective, I would agree with you. So how has it not? That's what I want to talk about with you. So you're going to get to know more about me in this time as we go through this journey together in the days ahead and so much more. But in the meantime, here's what I want to ask. If you want to learn more about my story or you want to read a book that walks you through the process of how to allow brokenness, whether it's the good or the bad, how to allow that to lead you to the road where you actually find true peace and restoration, I'm going to encourage you to go get a copy of my book. You can go to my website at authenticallybroken.com and you can find copies on there. The name of the book is Stop, Drop, and Deal. I don't have it right now to show, but I'll probably pop up a graphic right here so you can see it. I not only use the story of what I went through to kind of let you know a little bit about me, but I'll walk you through what does this look like and that your suffering does have significance if we will stop and be willing to see that, which means we're going to have to deal with some hard stuff, but it's okay. So thank you for joining me. Thank you for listening to this introduction. And if this is something that you want to explore more, which I hope you do, we're going to hit so many different topics, so many different things we're going to take a deeper dive into. A lot of them we won't go as deep as the book. The book will go deeper. And then in some areas, we'll talk about the book doesn't go as deep in. But this is going to be a community where we can come together. And for those of you who are going through this and you feel like you're alone or there's no place where you can go and talk honestly or be heard, I want this to be that place for you. You will be heard here. You will be seen. So I hope you come back and join me next week. We'll do this each week. I hope you have a blessed week and I will see you next time on the other side. Bye, guys.